In this video, we're going to talk about probability and compound events. A compound event is two or more events performed together to get combined outcomes. For example, rolling a die and flipping a coin, flipping 7 coins, or spinning a spinner 6 times are all examples of compound events. A sample space is the list of all possible outcomes of a compound event. In the previous examples, you might get 5 heads, 3 tails, etc., until you have all the possible outcomes. Or for flipping the coins, you might have heads, tails, heads, or heads, tails, heads. Or for spinning a spinner, you might have green, yellow, red, yellow, green, or yellow, green, red, pink, or any other combination. Just remember that you need to list all the possible outcomes. When writing a sample space, you can use a tree diagram to make it easier. So here's an example of writing a sample space using a tree diagram for 3 sizes of sodas and 2 flavors. So we can have size small, medium, or large, and flavor being grape or cola. So I list the grape and cola flavor for each size, and then connect the size to the flavor, size to flavor. And I get a small grape, small cola, medium grape, medium cola, large grape, and large cola as my sample space. Here's another example of a sample space using a tree diagram. This time it's flipping a coin 3 times. So on the first flip, I could get heads or tails. On the second flip, I could get heads or tails after each of the 2 heads or tails. And on the third flip, I can get heads or tails after each one of those heads or tails. And then reading left to right, I can read the sample space. So I could end up with heads, or heads, tail, or heads, tails, head, heads, tails, tail, tail, head, tails, tail, heads, or tail, tail. That's the entire sample space. I can now use this to find probability. For example, what's the probability of getting exactly 2 heads? Well, there's 3 of those that have exactly 2 heads out of the 8 total in the sample space. So the probability is 3/8. Another example is to find the probability of getting no tails. Well, only one of those has no tails, so that's 1 out of 8. In this example, we're going to look at the sample space using a table. So we're going to roll 2 dice and find their sum. So here's the table with die 1 and die 2, and then the sums being listed in the table. You'll notice there's 36 possible outcomes. And what's the probability of getting a sum of 7? Well, 6 of those 36 are 7. And so that means 1/6 is the probability of getting a 7 as a sum of 2 die. The next topic we're talking about is the fundamental counting principle. As you can tell by its name, it's a pretty important concept. It says if you have 2 or more events, the total number of outcomes is the product of the number of outcomes for each event. So for example, if I have 3 different sizes of t-shirts in 5 different colors, then the total number of t-shirts possible is 15. Since I take the 3 different sizes times the 5 colors, I get 15. Here's another example using the fundamental counting principle. If I have 3 different beach umbrella models, each one comes with 1 of 7 fabric patterns, and each pattern comes in orange or blue, how many different umbrellas do I have? Well, using the fundamental counting principle, I can take the 3 different umbrellas times 7 patterns times the 2 colors and get that there are 42 different umbrellas. Since the fundamental counting principle tells us to multiply the outcomes, we have 3 times 7 times 2, which is 42.